The Mount of Transfiguration. Even the name carries weight. It stirs something ancient, something sacred, something that feels like it belongs not just in history, but in the deepest chambers of the human soul. This was no ordinary mountain. It was not merely rock and soil rising above valleys. It was a meeting place, a threshold, a sacred intersection where heaven touched earth, where eternity stepped into time, and where three ordinary men were forever changed by the unveiled glory of Jesus Christ. Today, we are not just revisiting a biblical account, we are entering a holy moment. And as we journey through this story together, I invite you to do more than listen. I invite you to see it, feel it, stand there, tremble there, worship there, because what happened on that mountain was not just for Peter, James, and John, it was for you. It began like so many other days. Jesus turned to three of his disciples, Peter, James, and John, and invited them to follow him up a high mountain. No explanation, no announcement, no hint of what was coming. They had followed him before, through villages, across seas, into homes of sinners, and into synagogues of scholars. But this time felt different. The climb was long, dust clung to their sandals. The sun pressed down on their backs. The air thinned as they ascended. Every step higher separated them from the noise of the crowds below. Have you ever felt that? That quiet separation? When God begins to pull you away from the familiar and into something deeper? They didn't know it yet. But this was not just a physical ascent. They were climbing toward revelation. When they reached the summit, something unimaginable happened. Jesus, whom they knew as teacher, rabbi, friend, stood before them. And then he changed. Not slowly, not gradually, but suddenly. His face began to shine like the sun at its brightest peak, not reflected light, not symbolic light, but blazing, radiant glory. His clothes, once dusty from travel, became dazzling white, not bleached, not polished, but luminous, as if woven from pure light itself. This was not a trick of the eyes, not a vision in the imagination. This was revelation. For a brief, breathtaking moment, the veil of his humanity was pulled back, and the disciples saw what had always been true. Jesus was not merely a prophet, not merely a miracle worker. He was the Son of God, eternal, divine, glorious beyond description. Have you ever seen something so overwhelming it left you speechless? That is where they stood. But the revelation did not stop there. Two figures appeared beside him. No introduction was needed. They knew Moses, Elijah. Moses, the great lawgiver who stood on Mount Sinai surrounded by fire and cloud, receiving the commandments from God. Elijah, the fearless prophet who called down fire from heaven and confronted kings with the truth of God. These were giants of faith, heroes of Israel, men whose names shaped history. And now, there they were, speaking with Jesus, the law and the prophets, standing beside the one who fulfilled them both. This was not random. It was intentional. Everything God had spoken through centuries, through covenant, through commandment, through prophecy, was converging in one person, Jesus Christ. Scripture tells us they were discussing his departure, which he was about to accomplish in Jerusalem. That word carries depth. It means exodus. They were talking about the cross, while glory radiated from him. While heaven seemed to open, the conversation was about suffering, about betrayal, about rejection, about crucifixion. Think about the contrast. Radiant glory and the shadow of the cross, because the path to redemption would not bypass suffering. It would go straight through it. Peter, overwhelmed, blurted out, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 shelters." We can almost feel his heart. He wanted to preserve the moment, capture it, stay there. Have you ever wanted to stay in a mountaintop experience, to freeze the moment when God feels close, when faith feels strong, when clarity replaces confusion? Peter didn't want it to end, but before he could finish speaking, a cloud descended, not a storm cloud, not a dark shadow, a bright cloud, and from within it came a voice. "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." It was the voice of God. Not distant thunder, not symbolic language, a clear declaration. "This is my Son." The same words spoken at Jesus' baptism, now repeated on the mountain. And then one command: listen to him. Not Moses, not Elijah, not tradition alone. Listen to Jesus. The disciples fell face down in terror, because when the holiness of God is fully revealed, human strength collapses. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it ended. The light faded, the cloud lifted, Moses and Elijah disappeared. Jesus stood there again, looking as he always had. But the disciples would never see him the same way again. They had seen behind the curtain. They had witnessed divine glory. And as they descended the mountain, Jesus told them, "Tell no one what you have seen until the Son of Man is raised from the dead." Because glory without the cross would be misunderstood, the resurrection would complete the picture. This was not a random miracle, it was preparation. The disciples would soon see Jesus arrested, beaten, crucified. Their faith would shake, but in the darkest hour, somewhere in their memory would remain this truth: we saw his glory, and that memory would carry them through despair. Mountains have always been places where God reveals himself. Mount Sinai, where Moses received the law. Mount Carmel, where Elijah called down fire. Mount Zion, symbol of God's dwelling. And now this mountain. But something was different. On Sinai, the glory was hidden in fire and smoke. Here, the glory radiated from a person. God was no longer revealing himself through tablets of stone. He was revealing himself through his Son. The Transfiguration speaks across time. It reminds us, God's glory is real. Jesus is fully divine. The cross was part of the plan. Suffering is not the end. Resurrection follows obedience. The light on the mountain was a preview of the resurrection, and one day believers will share in that glory. Scripture says we are being transformed from glory to glory. The story is not just about Christ's transformation, it is about ours. Notice something important. They could not stay on the mountain. They had to descend. Back to crowds, back to brokenness, back to suffering. Faith is not about living permanently in spiritual highs. It is about carrying the vision of glory into ordinary life. The mountain strengthens us for the valley. What mountain are you standing on? Or what valley are you walking through? Do you trust that behind the ordinary appearance of your circumstances, divine glory is at work? The Father's command still echoes, listen to him. In confusion, listen. In suffering, listen. In doubt, listen. Because the same Jesus who shone with heavenly brilliance is the one who walks beside you today. The Transfiguration is more than history. It is invitation. An invitation to see Jesus as he truly is. An invitation to trust him through suffering. An invitation to follow him fully. If you have never placed your trust in him, today can be the beginning. If you have walked with him for years but grown distant, today can be renewal. The glory revealed on that mountain was not meant to remain there. It was meant to ignite faith in every generation. Imagine the disciples years later, after the resurrection, remembering that day. The shining face, the radiant garments, the voice from heaven, and now, with full understanding, they could say, we saw his glory. One day we too will see him, not for a moment, but forever. Until then, we follow, up the mountain, down into the valley, through suffering, into glory. Because the story of the Transfiguration is not just about a mountain long ago, it is about the eternal Son of God. And the invitation still stands. Will you listen? Will you follow? Will you let his glory transform your life? The choice is yours. and the light still shines.